This thing quit on me a minute ago, so I'm not sure how neatly this is going to merge together. And I was kind of going off on a tangent. I'm going to leave that aside. Um, thing about utopians and utopias, here's the key. Never forget this. Not only is there no freedom in a utopia, let's just say Nazi Germany was somebody's idea of a utopia. The old Soviet Union, North Korea, Venezuela, those are somebody's idea of a utopia. And to make it work, you have to bludgeon everybody into submission. Hence, they drift inexorably toward authoritarianism. And since they think you can make major changes in how an economic system, which is incredibly complex and forms itself spontaneously, and how it works, and it'll still work the same. All you have to do is just change the outcomes so that they will, you know, suit you better. So I don't know who elected these people God, but my strong counsel to you, if you learn anything from me or anything from life, do not follow them. It's a lie. Okay, they cannot deliver even if they think they can. Okay, what happened to socialism in America? It waned after a while. By the middle of the second decade of the last century, just over 100 years ago, um, progressivism is certainly declining. Part of that is just kind of went out of style. Um, Things are fashionable, they come, they go. In our history, from time to time, we have these fevers that rise and fall, and it goes away. There's another aspect here. Progressives are learning some hard lessons in that the idea that if they could just solve the problems we already knew about, then there wouldn't be any more problems. That proved to be elusive because every solution flips over and becomes in itself a new problem. And then there's the, shall we call it the iceberg syndrome. We're told only about 1/7 of an iceberg shows above water, the iceberg being a metaphor for some social problem. So if you just get rid of the part that's visible, that doesn't do anything as the rest of it floats up and you can't really do anything with it. So many progressives simply became weary and well-doing and turned aside. Then came World War I, which was a shattering experience for progressives because going into that decade of just over a century ago, American and West European culture was extremely confident of its superiority. They believed that moral progress had been achieved. There had been no big wars in almost 100 years. War is a thing of the past. We're getting better. Technology is enabling us to become better people. And then, even though it was kind of people were surprised but not surprised, we'll see to that. We'll get into that soon. World War I. It came out of nowhere. Okay, it broke out. Once it broke out, the very mechanisms which had been intended to make war simply too expensive to engage in, all they did was make it bigger and worse. Once the nations were in it, they couldn't get out. Okay? And science, which was supposed to be the new thing which would deliver us from war, from drudgery, all of that, science was quite as happy perfecting the art of killing on a mind-boggling scale. And worst of all, as I will tell you again at least 2 or 3 times, World War I really wasn't about anything. There were no huge issues at stake, no matter how hard the warring governments attempted to motivate their people to support it by lying to them and telling them that it was about the most important things that it could be about. It wasn't really about anything. So this was shattering. It destroyed the whole worldview of these people. And after it had been going on in Europe for a quarter of a decade, over 2.5 years, the time came for the United States to decide whether we would participate or not. It began at the beginning of August 1914. The The United States did not enter it until April of 1917. It's a tough one for progressives, including President Wilson, because they were instinctively pacifistic. They didn't, no war, no how, no way, no time. Well, what are you going to do here? Wilson thought he saw a way to provide mechanisms that would head off wars in the future. They were based on the naive idea that the nations of the world desire peace above all things, and that all they need is a standard existing mechanism that they can use to resolve their problems short of war. He wants to provide that, but he's not going to be invited to the peace conference unless we're in the war. So he asked for and got a declaration of war, framing it in very high-flown moralistic terms. He didn't use these words exactly, but they're very much in the air. It'd be a war to end all wars. It'd be a war to make the world safe for democracy. And most progressives overcame their resistance and supported it on a profound level. They sold their souls to it, believing what Wilson said. If we just make this effort here and pay this price, we have a chance to head off wars in the future and provide a peaceful world to come. So we did. And then once the war is over and we're on the winning side, within 6 months, it was more than obvious that nothing had really changed. Nothing had really changed. All that war was going to do was pave the way for another war in another 20 or 25 years, and it did. So by the 1920s, progressivism, the conservative variety, is dead. Sometimes they call it water and gas progressivism. You get straight lines, electricity, sewer system, all that. The socialists, who had not been troubled by the war, it was just one bunch of capitalists fighting another as far as they're concerned, did not impinge on their worldview. They're still out there playing the long game. So this concludes the progressive era. I've left out what it meant in actual politics in the United States. I want you to read about that in the supplement. In fact, I recommend you read this entire chapter, because what I've done here is mainly scratch the surface. So reading about this after hearing about it, or before hearing about it, either one, is what it's going to take for you to become conversant in this. And the whole reason this course exists is so that when you're through, you'll be far more knowledgeable about your country's past, a very important thing for you to understand, than you were at the outset. So go for it. Next will be World War I.